Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm an airline pilot, and welcome to today's preview of the Blue Sky Hangar Grumman AA-5 in NZA Simulation's fantastic Mount Cook region. We are going to fly this beautiful 1970s both VFR and IFR capable aircraft in one of the world's most beautiful VFR regions in the world, in the Mount Cook area down in New Zealand. Before we head out to the airplane, I just want to give you a very quick tour of the scenery over here, because I think it is really one of the best that you're going to find anywhere out there. And yes, I did get a free review copy, but I'm not saying that because I got a free copy, but simply make yourself some impressions here and have a look around that terminal, have a look at the level of detail that went into all of this over here, which is just amazing, isn't it? Now, we can also head upstairs where we got the Southern helicopter check-in. In, again, a beautifully modeled part of the terminal. Just looking fantastic, isn't it? Can also head out over here and then walk down those stairs. Just a little careful because it did snow last night. And some of that is still over here. Beautiful scenery, beautiful modeling, and overall a very, very nice choice of an airport. But now let's get into the Grumman AA-5 and start with a look at our airplane. So, 1970s. And some of you may say it looks a little bit like a Piper. I would agree with that, but it is actually a Grumman. Now, the model is pretty detailed if you have a look at everything that you find over here, but it does come at a price of approximately 25 euros, so it's not too expensive. It's looking pretty good for the price point, and overall you can have a lot of hidden caveats, like the ability to move the control surfaces during the walk around, just like you would do in a real-world airplane, to check their operability, like that, like that. So that's quite nice. That's really some nice level of detail there. You can also open the cargo doors. Well, cargo door, you know what I mean. And in order to open the canopy, there's a two-step process. You first of all gotta unlock it at the top over there. So let's just quickly go to the other side here. Let's also get our pitot cover. So first of all, you gotta unlock it up here. And when you've done that, then you can open the canopy and go inside. Now, loading the airplane is simply done through the standard FS 2024 EFB. So let's go over here, flight performances and mass and balance. Now let's go ahead and load ourselves into this at 180 pounds. Then I'm also going to go with some passengers here at 100 pounds and at 150 pounds each. And we're going to leave the fuel at approximately half, load the airplane immediately. And you can see that when the airplane is loaded, you also get those passengers inside. Now, let's have a look into the airplane's operations manual, because that one has a couple of lovely features, including what I would call the main feature of this airplane, and that is an interchangeable panel. So you can see you got your checklists over here, then you got your performance specifications in there and a little welcome letter, but the most important one is the notes panel over here, where you can control the exterior animations and then the interior, and that includes exchanging the panel. So we got the IFR panel with the GNS 430 fitted into the airplane right now. We also do have an IFR panel without the GNS 430. There is a VFR panel that does not include some of the IFR equipment that we've just seen. And then you can also choose a G1000 panel, which really gives this airplane some versatility that I do really appreciate. So you can fly modern day IFR style, you can fly it old day IFR style in two different versions, and then finally you can fly it 1970s VFR style if you want to. So that's really nice layout that you got in the airplane that you can choose from. And today I think I'm going to go with the IFR panel without a GPS, because we are just going to do a quick flight down the Mount Cook region. You can also fold the rear seats over here, and that is something, if you do that, of course our passengers are kind of in the way right now, but you can basically extend the cargo space just like you could in many cars. So that's quite a nice thing, and actually the first airplane add-on that I know that actually simulates that. So that way, if you need to load a little bit more cargo, you can do that. Or if you need the space for your passengers, you can get that as well. Alright, now let's go ahead and close that canopy and go flying. And here we go. Now, did you notice the blue tar of the windows? When you compare that to that? Quite a nice touch, isn't it? Good old 1970s style. Alright then, let's go ahead and find our checklists, and here they are. So, before start checklist, pre-flight, fuel, oil, propeller, tires, aircraft general condition are checked. Seats and belts are adjusted, brakes on, controls. Are completely free, and fuel is on the fullest tank. We're going to use the left one for this one. Before starting checklist complete, let's go into the starting engine checklist. So, primer as required. So for that, fuel is on, mixture is in. 1, 2, 3. That's gonna do. Mixture rich, throttle open 1/8 of an inch. Carburetor heat is off. Then master and alternator switches on. Let's also turn the beacon on. For some reason that doesn't seem to be in North American airplane checklists. A little strange for me as European, but that's what it is. Alright, so auxiliary fuel pump on. Fuel pressure is checked, and auxiliary fuel pump back off again. And then we are ready to start up. So ignition switch set to both. Then we are clear on all sides. Alright, start up. And here we go. Let's bring it up to 1000 RPMs. Lovely. Alright, oil pressure is checked down there, and I think they'll put it in the next checklist item anyway. So, yep, starter pressure, oil pressure checked, and that's the starting engine checklist complete. So let's put the checklist away again, and then we're ready to go and taxi out. A couple of things here though. Let's set the altimeter. Local elevation is 2150, so let's just dial that up like that. And I think the windsock is located somewhere there. Yes, it is. Alright, so we'll be departing to the north and then turning southbound. Alright, looks good. Parking brake released. Now let's get going. What's worth mentioning over here is that you do need quite a bit of power to start moving. So look at that, we need about 1400 RPMs there. So brakes are tracked. It's got a fantastic turn radius here. So you can really maneuver in and out of some pretty tight spaces. Now something that I find quite interesting here is how they modeled the nose wheel. You can see how the nose is constantly somewhat going up and down, and that is something that you do see, especially in some older aircraft. So, oh, looks like there's a little bump in the scenery coming. Yep. So that is something that you do see, especially in some older aircraft, and this one certainly falls into that category, being almost 50 years old. Alright then, the area is clear on the left and clear on the right. By the way, shall we just take a moment to appreciate the level of detail over here with all the rocks around the fence? I mean, that's looking quite amazing, is it? Okay then, let's backtrack our runway. 3-1. And here we go. So, a little takeoff briefing. We are taking off on runway 31, and it's going to be a right-hand traffic pattern climbing to an altitude of around 3,500 feet. Our rotation happens at 60, and we will accelerate rather soon after that, because you'll see that at 60 miles the plane is really not climbing very well, because you're quite far on the backside of the power curve. You could delay the rotation a little bit, but you will see that the AA-5 has limited power on the ground, and the engine only really excels when you are speeding up. Alright, so here we are, let's line ourselves up. Alright, runway 31, here it is. And here we go. So let's set that park and brake, and then we can start with a run-up. I didn't want to do it back at the apron because I wanted to give the engine a little bit of time to warm up, and that seems to be looking quite good now. To be fair, I do believe the oil temperature is coming up a little quick, but at least the indications do match. Alright, so engine run-up checklist. Brakes on, throttle set 1800 RPMs. And here we go, that's 1800. Okay, so engine instruments are tracked. Then we can check the magnetos. Right. And here's where I think there's a little bug. You see, we're losing 300 RPMs here by cycling through the magnetos, and it should be a maximum of 175. So I think that's a little bug in the pre-release version that I'm using. Alright, let's test the carb heat. That is looking good again. And with that we have done the engine run-up. So let's go back to 1000 RPMs, and then we can commence the B4 takeoff checklist. And for that we can put the booklet away, because you can see we got the checklists down here. So that's fuel, and that is on the fullest tank now. Auxiliary fuel pump on, engine instruments and flight instruments set and checked, trims located down here, set into the takeoff range, and then we got flaps up, throttle full, raise nose at 60, and that's the takeoff checklist complete. So since we're located at 2000 feet elevation, we are gonna have to do one thing. Let's hold the brakes, put the throttle full forward, and then we'll just lean it a little bit to actually obtain the maximum RPMs. Alright, so squat machine is going on, then let's go. So throttle full forward. You see we only get 2200 RPMs here. And we can get a little more out of it if we pull the mixture back a little. Alright, take off. You can see the RPMs are rising as we are accelerating. And here's 60, rotates. And we're up and flying. Now I will go for a rather shallow climb at first, because I want that speed to come up to 100 miles an hour. Because you can see that's also making our engine run quite a bit faster. And only then we are really going to be able to develop a nice rate of climb. If you maintain the speed somewhere down 60 or 70 or so, you're only going to get 200 or 300 feet a minute, because you're flying so far on the backside of the power curve. So you want to bring it up to 100 miles an hour, and then you're also getting a good rate of climb like we are getting right now. Alright, let's make a right turn out and get up to a good altitude. Then we are going to do a little exercising, so some steep turns left and right, maybe also stall, and then we are going to land 10 miles to the south, just on a fantastic looking airfield. I'll get you that much already, but have yourself be surprised. Alright, here we are. So let's go ahead and trim it out. You might notice that while I'm trimming, the nose has a tendency to move a little left and right. And that's something that I would, well, that I would kind of criticize on this plane. It would be nice if the plane could do a little less movement while you're trimming it, so that you're actually able to trim it out, you know, smoothly and precisely. It's not too bad overall, but it could see a little improvement there. Okay, so let's bring it up to 4,000 feet. And once we're in 4,000, we'll start with a little bit of air work. Steep turns, left, right, stall. And then we're already going to come back in for a landing. Alright, so we're approaching 4,000. That's just 2,000 AGL, so not the type of altitude where I would do stall exercises in the real world. So don't do that. Well, only do this at home, guys. Okay, so we're in 4,000. I'm going to keep the power up high because I know that we are going to need it in the steep turns. Let's start with the steep turn to the right here. The area is clear, there's nobody over there. Alright. So, 45 degrees angle of bank, standard steep turn, maintain 4,000 feet. And then we're going to roll out on a southerly heading. And as you can see, fairly easy to fly that way. Pretty easy aircraft control. But now, let's go for a 60-degree steep turn to the left, and then you will quickly notice how the engine can be overcome there. Alright, so let's roll out, and then we're going to go right into the 60-degree steep turn. And then you'll notice... Well, I'm just going to show you. Right, here's 60 degrees. Gonna have to pull quite a lot to maintain that altitude. And now watch the speed. And we're at full power. Can see we're really losing it. Alright. You saw what I meant there. If we had continued like that for a bit longer, we would probably have gone into a stall. Now, talking about stalls, let's go ahead and go for one. And for that, I'm just going to pitch it up a little bit. We'll let the power stick on. And you'll notice that it has quite the tendency to enter a spin, and you very actively have to prevent it from doing that. So, here we go. Alright, and prevent it straight away. If you do enter a spin, it's very hard to get it back out of it. Very, very hard. Okay, so that much about the flight characteristics. We could do one more with the flaps extended. So, let's get those flaps. And here they are. You do have 3 stages of them available. Alright, and now let's do the same thing again. It's quite amazing that it still flies at around 40 knots. Alright, and look at that. Can kind of keep it straight for a bit with the rudder, but you see the problem here. Getting pretty hard to hold, and here we go. Again, first priority, do not let it spin. Alright, and here we are. So, where are we facing right now? Got to orient ourselves. I think we wanted to go a little bit further to the right, okay. Alright, so down there is our destination, and that is Glentanner Airport, November Zulu Golf Tango, which is also modeled in the NZA Mount Cook region. Generally, beautiful region to fly in, isn't it? lovely 10-minute VFR hops down here, or longer flights up north into the Mount Cook area and the lake up in the north. All included. I can show you a quick overview of what's included in that scenery, as we got this fantastic map in the product manual. You can see Mount Cook Airport in the middle, and we've just headed all the way to the right over there to Glentanner, and then there is also the Twizel Medical Center included, and then on the left you got Mount Cook Village and a lot of stations that are reaching down into the mountains, which are really beautiful to fly into. So if VFR is your thing, then this might just about be the perfect combination for you. Alright, then down to the right is our airport. Let's go ahead and have a look into the checklist real quick. So cruise, all that stuff is done. Then before landing, fuel onto the fullest tank. That's going to be the left one. Aux pump on, mixture rich. Okay, carpet as required, flaps as required, approach 75 miles, and that's all set. Alright, so let's take the flaps into the first notch. And down here is our field. So we are going to follow the shoreline over here. Smooth turn. Okay, flaps into the second position. And flaps full. Alright, let's just get a little bit of carpet here. So 75 knots approach speed, and then let's turn final, and the carpet is gonna go back off. Alright. Getting a little slow right now. As mentioned, you gotta be careful with this airplane when you get slow. You can see it right now, 1,000 feet a minute there, and we have quite a bit of engine power set. Alright. So let's do one touch and go. Okay, that was a smooth one. Flaps going back up. Setting the power, and here is 60, rotate. And again, we are accelerating right after liftoff. Alright, so looking for 100. Here we go. Nice. We are going to do one more touch and go, and this time I'm going to show you what happens when you do not accelerate after liftoff. So this time we are just going to go to some 65 or 70 knots or so, which for some people may seem intuitive to fly at first, but I'm going to show you how that is really not going to work at all. Alright. Can already see that even in the turn at 100, just getting some 500 or 600 feet a minute there. Okay, so there's our runway. We are going to stay in 2600. Let's start reducing our power. And just maintain those 100 knots here on the downwind. This one is going to be a no-flap landing. Then we'll do that touch and go with the low-speed climb out just to show you what happens. And then we'll do one more proper landing. And that's gonna be it then. Alright, so we're overflying the shoreline. We can still use the same 75 knots for the no-flaps landing. While the flaps do create a little bit of lift, it is not a lot, as you can see looking at the difference between the green and the white arc here. It's really just 2 or 3 knots. So they mostly act as a drag device. You can see I'm taking the traffic pattern a little bit wider this time. And you can immediately see how we're using a lot less power than with the flaps extended. Alright. So let's slowly turn final here. Here's our 75 knots approach speed. Now look at the power setting here. We're running somewhere in the region of about 1600 RPMs, while previously we were more in the region of around 2000 to 2200 RPMs, trying to avoid the amber region there. Alright, and here we are, getting a little slow, correcting that. Pretty hard to see something when flying that slow. Alright. Idle. Here we are, so flaps are up already. Then I'll just let it lose a little bit of speed here so that the engine has time to run up before we reach 60. Here we are, rotate. Now look at this, I am going to maintain the speed down low. And you can see that's by far not the power that we had previously. There's really several hundred feet a minute of difference. Obviously, if you need to clear some close-in obstacles, then this is the way to go. But if you do have sufficient runway available, then just give it that little bit of distance to accelerate to the 100 before you start climbing out. Alright then. So let's go ahead and do just that, accelerate back up to 100 knots. And then we're going to go into a nice cruise climb back to Mount Cook Airport for the full stop landing. Overall, flies very well. One thing I haven't shown you yet that I am going to show you on the way back is the autopilot. Now, depending on the set of avionics that are installed in the airplane, you either have the G1000, which obviously does come with a modern set of an autopilot as well, or you have this little thing over there, which basically has 2 modes. Master, in which it can hold an altitude and fly a heading, and then you have a very basic nav tracker, which is just able to track VFR, but for a 1970s general aviation autopilot, that is quite a sophisticated machine. Alright, here we are. 3000. Let's just turn that autopilot master on. As you can see, this is what it does. It lets you going straight. And that's what it is supposed to do. Alright, so autopilot back off, because I do enjoy hand flying this. And then let's bring it right onto a straight final in Mount Cook Airport, which should be that thing over there. In terms of cruising speeds, when you do bring it up to altitude, you're getting between 140 to 150 knots from this airplane, depending on the version of the plane that you're flying as well. So the AA-5 does come with 3 different aircraft configurations that you can choose from, And those are the Traveler, the Tiger, and I kind of like that one the most, the Cheetah. And those have different engine powers, and if you go for the highest powered one, you're getting around 150 knots at 75% cruise, which is quite nice. Alright, so let's go ahead and find that airport, which is kind of the hardest task of them all right now. So let's just bring up some more power so that we keep going here and so that we get the nose down. Kind of thinking it's got to be this. Alright, then we'll be landing on a 3-1. So we are kind of coming in on a good heading over here. Alright, so it is a little turbulent here, but I am using the realistic turbulence option, and you can see the plane is coping pretty well with it. A little bit of wind, as we've seen from the windsock. I think it was some 10 knots or so from 310, so coming over the mountains over there, which is also why I'm flying on the right hand side of the valley, to not get into any of those downdrafts. Okay then. So, some carpet, fuel pump on. And here we are. Then I am extending the flaps now. Beautiful final approach here. Carpet is back off. Alright, and we are established on the final. Look at the level of detail on the ground there, all those objects. That's what I love about NZA simulations. They don't stop developing at the fence of the airport, but they do entire regions. Alright. And here we are. A little bit to the right of the center line. Well guys, and that's it. That's the Blue Sky Hangar Grumman AA-5. Really one type of an airplane that I do enjoy. Now, this one doesn't have fancy features like an electronic flightback or so, but it does come at a very modest price point at just about 25 euros. So, I do really appreciate that, and we were a little fast there and felt a little slippery. Let's take the next one. Don't want to be skidding off into the snow here. So yeah, really nice airplane to fly, an enjoyable airplane to fly, and the different panel options do really give you versatility and a lot of options that you would possibly not have like that in other add-ons. So overall, a very balanced package. It does fly well, it pretty much simulates what we need, and even has functioning circuit breakers, and well, I enjoy it. That's I think the main point that I can bring across over here. It sounds alright, it looks good, it has options. Now, are we gonna fit underneath? Yeah, we are. Good. Alright, and then we'll just turn around over here, park it on the side. Okay, and here we are. So let's set that parking brake, lean the mixture a little bit, and then we can do the shutdown checklist, which is electrical equipment off. So that's pretty much all off already. Let's do the avionics manually. 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright, electrical equipment is off, mixture, idle cutoff, magnetos off, and master switch off, and that's our checklist complete. So, an easy to operate airplane, flies nice, has a couple of caveats that you got to keep in mind while flying, like for example the low speed behavior or the engine power that is changing with airspeed. Again, simple engine. Well, but thoroughly enjoyable, especially for the price point over here. Likewise, we've got some fantastic scenery with NZA's Mount Cook region. Fantastic airport that can even take business jets with its 1600 meter runway, so you could get your Phenom or your Sovereign into this easily. And a fantastic landscape around it, with the entire region modeled, and not just Mount Cook Airport, but also others such as Glantana Airport that we did our touch and goes at. Overall, a really enjoyable package that I can thoroughly recommend, or rather two really enjoyable packages: Grumman AA-5 by Blue Sky Hangar and Mount Cook Region by NZA Simulations. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. I hope you liked this one. Leave your feedback in the comments underneath the video. Also, a huge shout out to both developers. That's Just Flight as publisher for the Grumman AA-5 and NZA Simulations for the fantastic scenery that we flew at today. Thank you very much, everyone. As always, like, comment, and subscribe. And if you really love what I'm doing on this channel, I would appreciate a small donation through the Buy Me a Coffee link in the video description below. Thank you very much for watching, and I'm looking forward to see you all again on the next one.